I'd, um, I'd now like to, I want to share something too about this. I put this in the memoir, but I want to say it here to share it with you. You know, when I was going through all this trauma at home, and I read Thomas Merton's Sign of Jonas in the 9th grade, and I had but one desire, the desire for solitude to disappear into God's face. And I got my own copy. I read it every day. All the violence got worse and worse, actually. And when I graduated from high school, my father didn't go to my graduation. He was drunk, didn't go. And I was writing to the monastery because I wanted to go to the monastery and be with my goal was to sit at Merton's feet so he could guide me into the secret of God's face. It was my goal. And my father didn't know anything about my wanting to go be a monk this way. And he was out trimming the hedges. I was very nervous. And I went out and I said, I want to go to the monastery, be a monk. He wanted to know what a monk was. So I explained it as best I could. And he said to me, if you go there, I'll murder your mother to punish you. He said, that's not a threat. I'll kill her if you go there. And I left the next morning. I don't know. I was used to that this way. So when I left and went to the monastery, I went to the monastery traumatized. In the monastery. And it was in that traumatized state, in the silence, I was quickened by God in the silence this way. It changed my whole life. And one moment I share with people too is that when I was with Thomas Merton, I had such a he had such a profound effect on me in high school, reading his book and so on. But because I had issues with authority figures, I was 18 years old, and my voice was shaking like this. And I was so embarrassed because I wanted him to think well of me. And I was scared in front of him. And he wanted to know what was going on. And I said, my voice was shaking. I said, I'm scared because you're Thomas Merton. And he said something to me. He said, this was such a great intervention. He said, I worked at the pig barn at the time, in the barn on the farm. He said, every day under obedience, I want you to end afternoon work early before Vespers, and I want you to come in here, knock on my door, and tell me one thing that happened at the pig barn. And the voice inside thought, I can do that. And he remembered all of it. He'd tell pig jokes and how's number 5, how's her foot, and all. And what it did is it leveled the playing field. And I could tell him about God this way. And that's the thing about it, is that it's the brokenness deeply accepted is the opening through which the light shines out. See, the very place we're so hoping nobody sees is the very place. This is what therapy is. It's finding a place that's safe enough to risk sharing what hurts the most in the presence of someone who will not invade you or abandon you. And out of it, it isn't just that you can learn not to invade or abandon yourself, but you can come upon within yourself what Jesus called the pearl of great price. It's the invincible preciousness of yourself and your brokenness this way. Some passages by Thomas Merton that I like. Merton says, Merton's Palace of Nowhere. He says, sometimes when people get spiritually awakened, they have a lot of questions when they're first awakened. Beginners have a lot of questions. And therefore, they're looking for people to help them answer their questions. He said, which is understandable. He said, but as you get into it a little deeper, you discover here all along, here it's God's asking the question. And not only do you not know the answer to God's question, you don't understand the question. He said, we don't like moments like this. I share with people, when I was writing Merton's Palace of Nowhere, I had a dream. I was struggling trying to write this book. And in this dream, I was invited to a lecture hall at a major university to give a lecture on Thomas Merton's principles of folk dancing. And when I got into the room, it was a very large auditorium with wood-paneled walls, no windows. Hundreds of people were there, and I was so pleased so many people came to hear this talk on the principles of folk dancing. And I had my notes, but because I was so introverted, I was very nervous at the same time. I had all my notes ready this way. And so they introduced me on the stage, and I approached the lectern, and I opened my notes, and I started to nervously read Thomas Merton's Principles of Folk Dancing. And as I was reading this way, all the lights got turned out in the room, except for the little lamp on the lectern shining on my notes. And I kept reading Thomas Merton's Principles of Folk Dancing. And in the dream, Thomas Merton appeared next to me, and he was luminous. He was lit up this way, and he had his arms folded on his chest, smiling, looking out at the people. And I was reading his Principles of Folk Dancing. And Merton started to do a folk dance. And I can remember thinking in the dream, what are you doing here? You're dead. And then I also thought, they're not listening to my carefully prepared lecture on the principles of folk dancing. And then when he started to do a folk dance this way, I could see in the light of the first few rows people standing up to join Merton dancing. At the end of the dream, everyone in the whole room was folk dancing for Merton, with Merton except for me, because I was reading his Principles of Folk Dancing. And Merton says, this is the problem. Oh, so great.